show. It is Daniel Workman coming to you live from the Dream Imaginate Sports Studios. It is 9 a.m. on the East Coast, 6 a.m. out west, and wherever you are in America or around the world. Welcome into the show. Thanks for tuning in on this Wednesday morning. A lot going on in the world of soccer yesterday, in the world of sports. Nope. Not really any games, but still a lot going on. If you haven't heard, we have gotten official notification on the postponement of Copa America this summer. The postponement of the Euros 2020 will now be the Euros 2021. And we are looking at if these leagues are able to reconvene in the next few weeks, that the club schedule and calendar will push back into June, and that will likely mean that the Champions League final will occur towards the end of June, and would give domestic competitions the opportunity to finish up sometime in early to mid-June. At least that's the word so far. No official word on the Olympics. Another question that many sports fans and the public have been asking. So far, no official information on that, and no official alternate plan even necessarily being tossed out. So we're still awaiting, things from the IOC and what's going on with the Olympics, the Summer Olympics this summer. But in terms of football, soccer, we got from the different governing bodies. FIFA also speaking on some of this yesterday, that we have a list of places or events that will be delayed over the next few months and will be moved into 2021. So, what we were expecting, and really what I think, was the right call to try to, cram this stuff in. If it had been a week or two, maybe 3, could we find some ways, to try to stay on schedule? Maybe, but this break looks like it's going to be for the football leagues in Europe, or is going to be a little bit longer than they originally forecasted, and giving club competitions the opportunity to extend a little bit, I think was the right call. And just, from a planning standpoint, those who had purchased tickets to Euro 2020, and, this isn't just a European thing. People come from all over the world to take in the Euros outside of the World Cup. It is an incredible competition, and so that and Copa America are the two kind of continental, confederation events that happen that outside of World Cup that are premium, top notch, top level events. And so to go on and postpone both of those events, to me, was an important step and necessary step needed to happen. So we'll continue to monitor the Olympics, but those two events, Copa America, Euros 2020, now taking place in 2021. In other news, I mentioned yesterday at the end of the show that we were going to be doing a special. This is a live special. This is taking place tomorrow night this special, and we're going to take a look at where we are in American soccer. We've had some things that have been going on recently in terms of the board decisions, etc. And so we are going to do a live special that is taking place tomorrow night, Thursday, at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is going to be a Bega TV production, SoccerWorks TV, and with this event, what we are looking to do. So it's going to be a different format than our show every day. Our show is a radio style show, and format, the Daniel Workman Show. And so what we're looking to do with this event is to basically bring in a panel of guests. Right now, with all of the coronavirus and everything, everyone's going to be remote, and the show will probably have a mixture of live and remote guests in the future, if we were able to execute and pull off additional specials, and in the long-term plan is for this to become a regular special, a regular TV show, SoccerWorks TV. Now, if you're wondering where did that name come from, I've mentioned yesterday and I've mentioned before that SoccerWorks was a daily short form podcast. It was about 2 minutes long, and what we would do is take a look at different aspects of American soccer in general, and that was kind of the first kind of official foray into soccer media in a consistent and concerted way, launching that show. That show eventually kind of morphed as we went along, and we did some longer form audio only podcasts, no video, and then we did some multiple guests live at the bar of the U.S. Soccer AGM. This was in 2019 segments where we literally just set up the gear in the bar and invited people in, and these were longer form interviews, and all of this kind of led us as we were building towards a big idea, and that big idea was to ultimately launch Bega TV, but the next step of that was to launch this show, the Daniel Workman Show, which airs weekday mornings live, and so we have been doing that. We're coming up on our 1-year anniversary in April of the Daniel Workman Show. SoccerWorks began probably about 9 months before we launched the Daniel Workman Show. And so now we are as we've been looking at content and building out the idea of a digital soccer channel that really covers the game with Bega TV, we're looking at bringing back SoccerWorks as a TV show that is going to give us a different format, and I'm excited about this to be able to kind of dig into things in a different way than the radio style format and show, as well as the original SoccerWorks style of show. So we are excited about this. SoccerWorks TV is going to be our first special tomorrow night, Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're going to have a live panel of guests, remote video in, and we're going to be discussing where we are, what's going on, what have we seen in the past, and what we'd like to see in the future. And I know that the U.S. Women's National Team case, the board of directors, and other aspects will definitely be hot topics that we are looking to talk about. And to watch this special, you'll be able to go on begatv.com. You'll find links there. We'll probably have this go out over some of the Daniel Workman Show, social media channels and platforms as well. And try to have it live on YouTube, Facebook. We're going to try to hit as many outlets as possible for you to be able to pull up and watch on your phone, on your tablet, or on your TV. So Bega TV presents SoccerWorks TV live special. This is tomorrow night, Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, hosted by yours truly, but really excited about the panel that we're putting together, and we'll have some more information on them maybe later today, for sure tomorrow, and as we build up to that. So just kind of ask Siri right now on your watch or your phone, or go on your computer and set a calendar notification. 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow night, SoccerWorks TV live special at 9 p.m. This, thinking through for a while, and having the ability to kind of pull all this together has been a process, but we are excited about where we are, and we're going to go on, and even though all the craziness of what's going on in the world right now, we decided to go in and pull the trigger on this. And do this first live special, and so we are going to do a deep dive on American soccer as our first live special for SoccerWorks TV. So check that out at begatv.com. Again, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. Speaking of setting your watch or making a note. DucticBrand.com, they make it very easy for you. If you're a coach right now and you're trying to figure out, okay, I need to plan out the rest of my spring, plan out my sessions, really get my stuff together, my act together. There's a great way for you to do that. Go to ducticbrand.com, DUKTIG brand.com, and look around. They've got planners, they've got journals, they've got a host of resources and tools for you. Go to ducticbrand.com, place an order, and when you do, use promo code DWSHOW, and you'll get 10% off of your order. Again, that is DWSHOW, and you'll get 10% off of your order at ducticbrand.com. Go there today. We'll be right back after this. for tuning in on this Wednesday, and we are excited about tomorrow night. Grant Wall yesterday posted an article headline: "Big task ahead for Cindy Parlow-Cone as U.S. Soccer president." Cindy Parlow-Cone isn't exactly walking into a cushy situation between the mending of fences, filling high-profile jobs, and navigating multiple lawsuits. Carlos Cordero's successor has a heavy to-do list. And let's be clear before we go any further. Carlos Cordero had the same situation to deal with. The problem for Carlos Cordero was not that he created this mess. He didn't. The mess was created under Sunil Gulati. Let's be clear about this. What we saw in Carlos Cordero was his inability to fix the mess. And so 2 years in, it became apparent that it was just not going to work. Cindy Cone now has been gifted the opportunity for the next 11 months prior to the next AGM, where there will be a presidential and vice presidential election, to see if she can fix this mess. She didn't create this mess. This mess was created under Sunil, but she's going to have to continue to work on things and try to do and improve things that Carlos Cordero was on. Monday, new U.S. Soccer president Cindy Parlow-Cone made her first public comment since taking over. She officially withdrew that legal strategy, calling it offensive, adding the Federation will conduct an internal review quickly to determine the breakdown at the board of directors level that allowed that strategy to go through. That's a good start, but let's be clear. Parlow-Cone has a crazy hard job right now. She's an unpaid volunteer doing a job that should be paid in the high six figures, and she's not a former Goldman Sachs partner like Cordero, who could afford this. She's in charge of an organization that currently has no CEO, no vice president, and no chief commercial officer. The people that have had the biggest influence on U.S. soccer over the past 2 decades are now gone. An ex-CEO, Dan Flynn, ex-CCO, Jay Berhalter, and ex-president, Sunil Gulati, who's no longer on the board since he's no longer the immediate past president. Here's what Parlow needs to oversee in the near term at U.S. Soccer. First, Chief Legal Officer Lydia Walke needs to lose her job. That's obvious, and it should have already happened. Second, the public needs to know exactly why the board of directors failed so miserably with this legal strategy, and exactly which steps the U.S. Soccer Board will take to end its dysfunction that has lasted for decades. And third, U.S. Soccer needs to settle the lawsuit with the U.S. Women's National Team players as soon as possible. I'm told that several board members, including MLS Commissioner Dan Garber, had pushed Cordero to settle the suit and move beyond it, but that didn't happen. It has to now. Fourth, hire a new CEO, not only to know, but to express these views. This is just my view on this. The failing of this U.S. Soccer Board is appalling. In times of crisis, leadership is crucial. In the case of U.S. Soccer, that has to come from Parlow-Cone, and that has to come from the U.S. Soccer Board, which hasn't shown nearly enough so far. Parlow-Cone's challenge over the next year will be immense. She has to resolve multiple lawsuits, mend relationships, and restore faith with the U.S. Women's National Team, fans, sponsors, and Federation members. She has to help guide a gutted organization through a complete reconstruction despite having bylaws that make it vulnerable. And she has to do it knowing that there will be an election for president and vice president next February to see who will finish out the term to which Cordero was elected, and another one in 2022. There is an opportunity now for U.S. Soccer to reinvent itself, to bring new leaders in from diverse demographics. But with a World Cup coming here in 2026, there's also a danger that in a power vacuum, the Federation could be vulnerable to a takeover from potentially wealthy interest with an agenda. Think the Cook brothers for soccer. The promotion relegation crowd would say that such an influence already exists with the owners of MLS, who are also the owners of Soccer United Marketing, which goes to show how much division there is out there. Unless strong leadership happens, the next 2 years in U.S. soccer could make the uproar leading up to the 2018 presidential election look tame by comparison. We can only hope. So, with everything going on, and there's a lot going on in the world of soccer. You've got interest in the UK and obviously here in the States. Before we get into some of the stuff with bug eaters, what have you been keeping tabs on and learning about the situation going on in the UK with your club there, and what kind of ramifications has this break and the coronavirus and all of that having on the club over there?
Well, I think it's interesting to see how the UK is responding versus the United States, and the United States seems to be, a week to 2 weeks ahead of the actions over there in England, and so things over there are locking down. It's a different response. They had the herd mentality, and I think the most important thing there is to shut it down as quickly as possible. From things that we've learned here in the U.S. There are some concerns over there. If you looked at news this week, Barnet, which is a National League club, they basically laid off everybody, cut the staff, put the manager on notice, and there's a lot of uncertainty. I expect to see that with quite a few clubs over there that depend on weekly income to fund the expenses. And so, Barnet is a good club.
And for, Major League Soccer in the USL, they, spring and running to the fall. And then you've got obviously a lot of the regional leagues and lower division amateur leagues that kick off, some in March, some in April, but there's quite a few, as we know, that kick off in May and run into the summer. Switching gears here to the U.S. side of things, you guys, played last year to play again this year with bug eaters. How is this whole situation affecting your plans and kind of trying to figure out what life might look like as you're speculating as you look ahead towards this summer season?
Well, we had a league set to go, and we were finalizing the number of teams. It was going to be 5 to 6. And, then a few weeks ago, we started seeing this coming along. And it was about a week ago that we said we would shut it down. And obviously, we were a little bit ahead of the curve on that. We put out a statement. I put out a statement on Thursday of last week. And immediately, here's the season, or go to some of the fans that we have and say, hey, look, why don't you come to some games this year, even though we know that you lost a substantial amount of income. It doesn't make any sense. And so, the other thing is we've also lost a lot of planning time. Now is a key time to be preparing for the season, selecting players, tryouts, et cetera. So I think the one thing that we're fortunate with is that we're dynamic, meaning we can scale up and down quickly. We don't have pro contracts that we're locked into at the moment, where we have to, where we're paying wages without income. And so what we're looking at is, I think fully we're looking at 2021. But the most important thing that we're doing right now is what can we do to help the community? Because the community is not only suffering, but it's also it's quite damaged at this point. And when we set the club up, we said we would be a community club. So now's the time to figure out what we can do. And again, we're a small organization, but I do think that we do have a part to play in this, and there are things that we can do today to help the community.
So in looking at Omaha specifically in that community, the community for to do, maybe to inspire them to help their community. What are you guys looking at?
I think the first thing is what I'm going to do is we'll put a sale out there and we'll donate 100% of the sales to the COVID-19 response fund in Omaha, and I'll go ahead and I'll match whatever the sales are, and I'll put a minimum of $1,000 up against that. Now, that's a drop in the bucket compared to what's happening, but at least we are looking to try to do something to help the community. I would also say, in evaluating what you can do, I think as much as it is what can you do as a team, I think it's also what can you do individually. I think we're on the front end of this. The what can you do is really going to come in on the backside of this more than anything else. And so, I'm in constant contact with, my team there in Omaha, and we're trying to assess the situation, figure out if there's anything we can do on the backside of this.
So when looking at the ramifications there are 3, 4, 5 clubs that were going to be in your league, and what are you hearing from others throughout amateur soccer in terms of their ability to try to execute and play a season this year?
England, I think you're going to see a lot of damage. Teams that are being funded by entrepreneurs, I can tell you firsthand that those business situations have completely changed within the span of about a week to 2 weeks. And the funding may not be there anymore. So we may see a lot of teams, cease to exist and go away. And, not just here, but globally. And further, I think the most important thing is let's focus on the concern for the health of the employees, the staff, the volunteers, and the players, and their families at the moment. And it's very concerning. And so, what I'm hearing nationally is a similar situation. A lot of people do want to play this season, but I think right now, soccer needs to be put on pause, and we need to focus on this situation and see what happens there, and then look at building the season. I was actually talking to somebody who has a team in the NPSL, and they're in a similar situation in that now are the key months for planning the season. They don't know if they can, get a season off the ground, and as an entrepreneur, they've suffered significant damage to their business.
It is a wild time that we live in when, with everything going on right now.
Types of things. If you're going to get into the game, you need to be able to do it right, and you need to be able to fund it. And I've been a proponent of sustainability. And when I say sustainability, I mean exactly that. At the end of the season, you have enough cash to pay all of your bills. And that's how we built Bug Eaters, and that's why Bug Eaters is dynamic and will continue regardless of the situation. It's also tying in, and I think one thing that you have to tie into this is the people as well. And you have to be able to build a team of people who are committed to that same cause. And I'm very fortunate that I have a fantastic team that's committed to that same cause. I think the challenge is when you look at this two different ways. Number one is, the people who are in this to make a buck. I got some bad news. There's no money to be made. There won't be, there hasn't been, and those who have jumped in and attempt to make a quick buck are going to feel the consequences of this. And it's unfortunate that people will suffer because of that. But the second thing is when you are building sustainability, you need to do it slowly. You need to get the community backing, and you need to focus. And so, the situation that we're in is unprecedented. I know that's, people keep saying that. But how do you avoid this situation? You raise the standards. You raise the standards and you make sure that the business model is one that's beneficial. These pay for play leagues, I'm concerned, are going to be some fallout and some washout in this situation. So, from a financial standpoint, bug eaters are fine because we're able to scale up and scale down. We are not based on building valuation. We're not based on turning a buck. And so that's why, sponsors for this season, any funds we received, we've returned. Those businesses need that money. And we're not going to try to push a season. And if we do have any matches, we won't be charging admission because, the fan base and the community that we have is absolutely suffering. And that's where I really think there are two different business models. And we're going to see a big impact to the one that's based on valuation, and also the one where they've jumped in and, they've been losing money, but won't be able to do so anymore.
In terms of standards, I want to go back to this for just a moment. And it was a sellout crowd. It was announced, I think, somewhere around 6,100, which was maximum capacity for that small stadium. But generally, I felt like it was a really good setup. They, if you walked around, could you find something to nitpick on? Maybe, if that's just your thing. But in terms of bathrooms and concessions and the environment and all of those things, I felt it was really good. And one of the things I wanted to bring up with you talking about standards is when you look at two clubs that were the standard bearers for the NPSL, Chattanooga and Detroit, which have recently departed for NISA. These two clubs have been well known for quite some time for what I would say punching above their weight when it comes to standards. The league itself doesn't have a league-wide standard to the level of what Detroit and Chattanooga upheld internally for themselves. But if you went to a Chattanooga match, having gone to a Chattanooga match versus a San Diego match, very similar in the execution of the match day environment and experience. Both professional operations, even though one was operating as a short season, Cape Cod summer style amateur club in Chattanooga and Detroit, for example, versus San Diego, which are paying players. How important is it, as you mentioned, standards and standardization across leagues and the operations and kind of changing the ecosphere and landscape? How important is it to address the game day experience and the operations of these clubs from a standardization standpoint with leagues in order to build something that is sustaining and, quite frankly, is run better across the board, rather than having a Chattanooga or Detroit be an outlier for the NPSL and making that a normal experience for of the NPSL when they were in the league. Now for them with NISA, for example, how important is this standardization from a league perspective in kind of changing the dynamics for soccer clubs in America?
Well, I'm not going to speak on behalf of the league, but I'll speak from the club aspect. And so when we built Bug Eaters, I wanted to ensure that we did everything as high quality as possible to build a product that was lasting. And, currently we play at one of the nicest soccer facilities in the United States at Morrison Stadium at Creighton University. And if you went to a match day there, you would notice some of the things that we've taken away from some of the quality clubs such as Chattanooga and Little Rock that we've actually gone and played and taken notes and go, okay, well, this is a good idea. And you need to have quality. You need to have quality training facilities. You need to have quality stadium and quality stadium operations. And anybody, I would say these communities have those types of facilities. We're very fortunate in the United States that most communities have those. And so it's, again, connecting with your community. How do you get access to this? Well, you have to be connected in the community, know the community, and show them that your intent is to help development, not to say, I'm going to use this and then I'm going to go use this facility and then ultimately go pro. And that's not going to work. And I think one thing coming out of this is that what I've been saying, which is, a quality program, you don't have to have the pro label to be a quality program. And I get that people want the extended season. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the team itself, the fan experience, and that's one thing you touched on, which I'm absolutely a big proponent of. If somebody comes to a Bug Eaters game and they leave, what do they say? Did they feel that it was a pro match day? Do they feel that let me rephrase that, because when I say pro match day, I don't mean pro as in players on the field, because the fact is when we asked people leaving the stadium last year, what did you think? They had no idea if we were pro or not. They felt that it was good, that it was quality, and it was well done. And so one thing about Nebraska is it's fan. And so, when I see what we've done in Omaha, we've done that connection and we're building. Unfortunately, now's not even the time to be thinking about this, because it's just been it's been tough lately, to say the least.
Well, I think you bring up some really good points there about connecting to the community and, finding ways customers. Like you're rolling out the welcome mat to the amateur from the standpoint of the overall experience outside the lines, from the stadium experience, food and concessions, the greeters, the staff. I mean, all of it. You want that to feel top notch, and that's really the point I was making about what I observed in San Diego versus what I've observed at like, for example, a Chattanooga match, where even though Chattanooga was operating in U.S. Soccer organization, they were putting on a professional match day experience, which, to your point, as we are well know, necessary. I've had this conversation with so many clubs across this country who will talk about, well, we they'll look at this league, or they'll look at this club, or they'll look at this thing, and one day, or I would love to, and for me, it gets down to like, you've got to start even if it's small things, you've got to start to execute. You've got to start to build. And I know that yourself and others that are in the game are always willing to share ideas and help out and provide advice. And I think it's important that clubs seek out that advice and try to execute, because the system is healthier and better over the long run if we are able to have these clubs elevate their standards internally, not wait on a league or a federation to do it. We obviously know the federation's incapable at this point of doing it anyway. So, I think it's an important point, and in light of where we are with all of the coronavirus stuff and league cancellations, clubs going on hiatus, etc., now's a good time to do some internal review, some introspection. Who are we as a club? How do we connect to our community? How can we be a resource during these difficult times? How can we get better for the community over the long run? And I think if we all take some time to do that, both in our personal lives and our businesses, but also as soccer clubs, I think we'll
on them at this point. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to contact me. I'd be happy to give you ideas. But every club that you mentioned that's successful, they had one thing in common. That is, they were focused on the community. And I'm not talking about some out of state owners showing up saying that they are authentic and they're going to focus on the community because they're there to make a buck off of them. I'm talking about somebody who's a local leader, somebody who's locally involved and wants to focus on that community. Now's the time to step up and do it. And I would say, soccer's secondary to everything that's going on, not even probably secondary. We've got to focus on the issue we have at hand, and teams need to be thinking about on them at this point. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to contact me. I'd be happy to give you ideas. But every club that you mentioned that's successful, they had one thing in common. That is, they were focused on the community. And I'm not talking about some out of state owners showing up saying that they are authentic and they're going to focus on the community because they're there to make a buck off of them. I'm talking about somebody who's a local leader, somebody who's locally involved and wants to focus on that community. Now's the time to step up and do it. And I would say, soccer's secondary to everything that's going on, not even probably secondary. We've got to focus on the issue we have at hand, and teams need to be thinking about what they can do to help that community.
I completely agree, and I hope that we all take lessons from I completely agree, and I hope that we all take lessons. Personally get better in our organizations, our businesses, and in our soccer clubs as well. Jonathan, thanks for joining the show. Stay safe out there, and best of luck in businesses and in our soccer clubs as well. Jonathan, thanks for joining the show. Stay safe out there, and best of luck. And we'll be looking for that official release today on your Bug Eaters campaign, and as you look into the future in terms of the Bug Eaters and your Bug Eaters campaign, and as you look into the future in terms of the Bug Eaters and other aspects you're involved with, we'd love to have you back on, dig into all of those things. So thanks for joining the show today.
Thanks for having me on.
Always. That is John. Have you back, kind of dig into all of those things. So thanks for joining the show today. Jonathan Kalura of Bug Eaters FC, and appreciate him coming on this morning to spend some time with us, talking about the realities that who doesn't even have access to clean water, much less anything else. So charitywater.org, learn more about them today at charitywater.org. We'll be right back after this.
No one No man, no woman, no child should ever have to drink green water with bugs, with algae, with disease in it. Bad water and a lack of toilets kills more people than all the wars in the world. We know how to bring clean drinking water right now to every single person on earth. And when you can bring water into communities, it truly transforms them. It changes everything. Right? You could know that you'd made a difference. You could know that you had truly impacted the life of a family, of a community, of a region. There was either clean water or there wasn't. We believe in a world where every single person has clean and safe water to drink, and we will continue fighting until that happens.
Welcome back into the show. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to Jonathan Kalura for joining us today. And, there's some grim realities out there for clubs across the world. And it's important that we keep those in mind these times. Obviously, in taking advantage of those lessons. One point I want to get back to before Jonathan joined the show, we were talking a little bit about what Grant Wall had written and talking about Cindy Cohn coming in as president and in some of the continued changes that were necessary. Meg Linehan for The Athletic also had an article up yesterday. New USSF president changes course in equal pay court filings after public backlash. And she did a good review, and there's a couple points that really stood out to me in regards to this situation. And that was that, as she pointed out, that Cindy Cohn's, basically plan in her first kind of statement as part of this whole release of an updated legal filing had 3 steps. 2 of them they had already taken. So those first 2 steps were removing the offensive language and transitioning to Latham and Watkins. And so those 2 steps they had already taken and had already begun and achieved. The final step was performing a comprehensive review of, quote, our internal processes to better understand how this breakdown occurred and how it can be avoided in the future. It's important to note and to point out here, as Meg Linehan points out, that review only pertains to the internal process which allowed the Federation's attorneys. Another point that Linehan pointed out here is that those who spoke up, including Cindy Cohn, called them an error. This was Cindy Cohn's statement when she went public with her views on this situation. She called them an error, but again, Meg Linehan points out they were only a conclusion of months of legal strategy that can be traced back to December 2019 depositions of U.S. women's national team players. So, looking at all of this, the facts don't add up in a favorable way thus far for Cindy Cohn taking the widespread and sweeping actions that need to take place. If you're going to lay out a 3-step plan and your plan is simply to change the law firm that handled this and to remove the incendiary language, as well as call for a review of how this language got in there in the first place, that's not enough. And it's important to point this out, and it further goes to one of the reasons, not the primary reason, but one of the reasons why we are doing this SoccerWorks TV live special tomorrow night. We are going to be doing this light standpoint. You'll be able to keep track of this and watch this and follow along, and we're hoping to have the ability and opportunity for feedback and Q&A and get almost kind of a town hall type of feel to the event as much as we possibly can. And so stay tuned for details on that. That we'll have some more of that information out tomorrow. But this event is taking place tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our SoccerWorks TV live special, and it's something that we are really excited about, and hope that you'll be able to mark this on your calendars to take advantage of the content that we're able to put together here. And we are going to get into some of this stuff with the board of directors and U.S. Soccer as well. So that is tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our SoccerWorks TV. This is our first live special on this new version of SoccerWorks, and we're hoping to eventually turn this into a regular TV show. And we're working on some details, surrounding that. But for now, this will be our first live special, and we look forward to bringing that to you tomorrow night. So stay tuned for that. Mark your calendars. We hope